Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Healthier Home, the Inside Story, brought to you by Broan-NuTone. As always, I'm your host, Dave Jones. Glad to be here with you guys and glad to have you here with us. We've got a great episode today. We have David Belman, the president of Belman Homes, here to hang out with us and explain all things healthy home and indoor air quality. And we've got from our team, Pat Nielsen, the grand poobah of indoor air quality. I don't think that's technically his title, but I love it, so we're going to go with it. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and early guest on the new podcast. So very exciting.
Grand Poobah, is that like from the Flintstones or something?
I think that's technically it. Yeah, great. You got to have one of those great hats though with the water buffalo, I think it was, right?
Oh,
I think we got to
it,
get you
yeah.
one of those hats. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so welcome, Dave. Belman Homes is a premium custom home builder here in the Milwaukee area, technically Waukesha. He's been on the board of both the Milwaukee Builders Association and the Wisconsin Builders Association. And I understand a past president of both, Dave. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to tell us about Belman Homes or your background.
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you for the introduction. And, again, appreciate being here. I'm also involved on the National Home Builders Association. So this year, actually, I'm chairing the Young Professional Committee. So helping foster in the next wave of young professionals into the industry, and excited to be able to do that and give back. And then the other cool thing that we do that really sets Belman Homes apart is we do a really amazing thing in the community called Operation Finally Home. And we build and provide a mortgage-free home for a wounded combat hero. So we just started the 7th home here in Wisconsin and unveiled the family. And the lumber came yesterday, and we're framing a house. So we're excited, and just a cool thing to be a part of.
That's awesome.
That's great stuff. Oh, good for you.
And I'll put in a plug for Broan, because you guys have donated fans and things in the past, so we appreciate the support that you guys have done for our veterans as well.
We're happy and proud to be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, let's start, David, maybe the most basic question. How would you describe a home that is healthy?
Yeah, that's much more of a focus for consumers out there than it ever has been. And so, I think a healthy home, you've got to look at a couple things. You got to look at air quality. You also have to consider the moisture level in the home, the purity of the air, and then just, I think, the overall comfort level of the home as well is important, because, if it's cold or you got uneven heating in the home, that can also kind of affect the health of the home. You can start causing mold and things like that. And then it goes even beyond that. I mean, it's like water quality, and then even light, because some people have issues with light and sensitivity to it. And then it was really cool. I was at a summit earlier, and they were talking about a thing called biophilic design, which I was like, what the heck is that? And I learned about that, and that was really interesting, where you're kind of bringing in nature within the home. And so there's a lot of things that can go into a healthy home.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned the word comfort. I think that's one of my questions was, how do you think people measure indoor healthiness or indoor air quality? And a lot of it is probably discomfort, whether it be temperature,
Yeah, I
humidity.
think so. It's hard to quantify sometimes. What actually makes a home healthy versus one that's not. And everybody probably thinks their home is perfectly healthy, but I think the comfort piece is huge too, because sometimes people don't necessarily care about a rating or a number, but they're like, hey, I don't want to go in my house and sit by the wall and feel air blowing in, and I don't have to put on 6 blankets to be comfortable in my home. So that's important, because that affects everybody every single day.
And of course, some people are more, whether you have particular sensitivities or, respiratory problem, or, a child or elderly with asthma, I'm sure that's a factor as well.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of that coming into the industry just with consumers over the years, and people having sensitivity issues to certain products, but things like asthma, and then obviously once COVID hit, I think there's a whole nother level of awareness to all of this in the industry, and people just being concerned about bacteria and germs, and so you've seen and I'm sure you guys have. I know you have created a lot of cool products for filtration and germ killing, and there's UV lights, and now you've got all these sensors and different things. So there's a lot of there was a lot of space and real estate for innovation in that department, and I know you guys are on top of that stuff.
So I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that it's less expensive to do the work up front. It seems to make perfect sense, but I wonder if there's a lot of people out there thinking like, it's not worth the investment now, right? It's like I'm going to put it off. That's a nice to have, right? What's the conversation you have with a potential home builder, right? A homeowner. Do you walk them through that ROI on their on that investment? Like, look, you're like, can you put a dollar value on your health? Can you, if we're looking at this versus upgrading to marble countertops, like we got to be honest, like this is the right move. Do you encourage them and have that conversation? How does that look? How's that
Yeah,
work?
I mean, I think that's a great question. And I think a lot of times, you have sort of this feeling out process, and we try to really understand what's a priority to our customers first before we go too far. We don't just try and jump in and let's just start talking features.
Sure.
So, when you have a homeowner that does mention that, like, we have concerns about sick kids or we have allergies or things like that, that naturally opens that door for the conversation. But, what I try to do is, there's so many things you can put in a home. There's millions of products and upgrades galore. I mean, you could go crazy on tile. You can go crazy on granite, whatever. But you have to kind of be smart about it because everybody, unfortunately, does not have an unlimited budget when they build a home. And so you have to be cognizant of that. And so, we have those conversations. And sometimes people come in with things and they're like, well, I got to have this. And you're like, okay, well, why? And I'm not trying to do it to be snarky. It's just like, well, I just think I should have it. And it's like, well, did you know that there's, this product instead that will give you a similar result and it's going to cost you, a fraction of the money. And, I'm not trying to sit there and empty out your purse. I'm trying to put the best thing in your home for you that you're going to be happy with.
I mean, given there's a increased concern about health and indoor air quality, how much better do you think people's knowledge, have they done their research? Do they come to you with a little better feel for what they want than they did 5-10 years ago when it comes to health and indoor air quality?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more awareness of it, and obviously, again, I think the pandemic kind of created that a little bit too. But I think people are researching. There's just so much more data out there now too. So people are going on the internet and they're looking things up, and sometimes as much as I try and stay up on things, there's people that'll come to me and go, "Hey, I want this XYZ product." I'm like, "Oh, I've never heard of that. What is that?" So we're learning too as we go, and I mean, there's hundreds of manufacturers and thousands of products and innovations every day. But, I think people are more concerned about it. And, we find these things out. We find out these things in our food that aren't good for us. We find out that you think you're drinking really good water, but it's not. And so there's just so many things that we're learning as a society, and then we're able to add that or integrate that in. And so, I kind of use Tom Brady as an example. Not that I like Tom Brady, but he's like a super like nut about every little thing he puts in his body, and I'm sure he cares about every little thing in his house. And there are people out there that are like that, and focus on that. So it's interesting, and as that technology evolves, and you guys come up with more of these great products that have all these ratings and sensors and things, and all the smart technology that's available now that can dovetail with it, so you can get like real-time results. That's really interesting, and I think will really help people's knowledge of the homes and the systems and the products that go in and how they relate to your general health.
Mm-hmm. How do you think people judge IAQ? When you have people comment on it, is it more about sensing the smell? Is it, are they buying the indoor air quality monitors you can buy online now for a couple $100? What kind of feedback do you get about, or questions do you get about it? In what terms do they think of it?
Sure. Yeah. As far as like the indoor air quality monitors, like those new things that you have, I don't think the public's quite fully aware of that yet. I know you guys have launched those and things. I haven't had a lot of people just coming to me and saying, well, I got to have that. Yeah, there you go. You got it right in the background. And I think you guys gave me one at one of the shows I was at, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I got to try this. Yeah, I think that's coming, and we're going to see more and more of it. And again, this kind of off the shelf stuff, just like how like the Ring doorbells and those kind of things. Sorry to bring up a competitor, but like those are simple, right? They're inexpensive. They're simple. You can kind of add it yourself. I think there's a huge market for that, and that'll drive a lot of the awareness. As far as like the bigger systems, whenever somebody mentions to me that they've got, health issues, we talk about a couple things like right off the bat, like, okay, a lot of times it's just the first thing is like get rid of the carpet because that just holds, all the dust and dander and everything. And then it's like, okay, well, what about getting more fresh air exchanges? So we're talking about an HRV or an air exchanger. We're maybe talking about a higher MERV filter. And then we might start talking about some exhaust fans and things like that. And, making sure that they're getting rid of the moisture, especially if they have mold issues. And you're going to want to probably upsize the bath fan or go with, some of those automatic ones or humidity sensing fans. I mean, there's so much out there. So it's just trying to, it's kind of like being at a doctor's office or something. You're kind of tailor fitting the right solution to somebody. And you can do the same thing with the home and all the technology that's out there.
Yeah. You kind of, leading into my next question is, to what degree, you mentioned some ventilation devices, bigger bath fans, maybe a better range hood, ERV. Do you have many people coming to you requesting those things, or it's more, to what degree do they understand that ventilation is a great, solution to indoor air quality? Or are they thinking air purifiers, or how do they think?
Yeah, so typically customers aren't coming to me saying, I want to have this device. What they're saying is, I have this problem, or I don't like this about my house, and I don't want it in my next house. And then we can kind of start to figure out what's going on. And so a lot of times it's more of a problem-based solution when you're at the customer level. And we all do this where we're like, oh, this is great, this does this, and this has this efficiency. But it's like, what problem are we solving here? And so I think, we all can do better at that. And that's what the customer really wants to know, or what is the benefit I'm going to get from this? So, if I put this HRV in, and a lot of people worry about those because they're like, okay, well, is that going to be less efficient? And it's like, no, it's not, because it's going to heat the air when it draws it out, and then it's going to run that, fresh air over that warm coil, and you're not going to lose the efficiency. And it's like, oh, so I get fresh air and I don't really lose efficiency. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, I'm down for that. Right. So, I think those are things that, work for a customer. And then, some of the things that you guys offer, which are great, are, they have sort of the whiz bang feature along with it. So, you might be getting a better bath fan, but you're also getting those really cool LED lights, or you got the ones that you can kind of change the lighting on, or you get the speaker fans and stuff like that. So sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, I just want something fun and new and different, in my home that'll, I'm going to enjoy.
Right. Speak along those lines too, thinking of, as an example, our Overture, to what degree do you think people, it has, you have products with cool phone apps, and you can play with it, and you can be 2,000 miles away and see, this room has high CO2 and back in my house. To what degree, do you think people want to actively and have fun with it versus, hey, I want a system that's going to turn things on automatically when it needs to, and I don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously a benefit, is that you don't want to have to sit there and be like, oh, well, I got to go get my report for my house today, and I got to change all my thermostats again. Like, nobody wants to do that. But I love the Overture, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's a game changer right there, because that product is, actively sensing it, and it's saying, hey, we're going to call for this or call for that. And, there's probably a way for you guys to gamify this thing. And if you know what gamification is, like create a reward system for doing something, but, maybe that's level 2 on it. But, I think it is kind of neat to be able to look at that once in a while and say, oh, that's pretty interesting. It's just like kind of like you get the utility bill, and it's like, okay, I just put a new furnace in and some stuff in my home. It's like, okay, oh, look, like my heating bill went down, $30-$40. Okay. At least they want to see some results somewhere along the way too. And they don't mind spending extra money, but it's kind of cool when you can say, hey, there's doing some stuff for me too, and behind the scenes that I appreciate.
Got to earn that badge on leaving your bath fan on long enough after you shower, right? That 20-minute
window.
You get a badge for every time you do it properly.
Yeah, like the healthy home warriors.
Yeah, there you go.
Level 12, right?
Thinking when when people started being more concerned about being green, whenever that was 20 years ago, the idea of companies greenwashing products came out. Are you seeing that with any healthy home products, or do you think that's going to become a problem?
I mean, whenever somebody puts something out there and it gets traction, I think there's always, people out there trying to take advantage of it. We don't have people coming to me, in my company anymore going, I want to build a green home. I think, yeah, a lot of people have kind of said, okay, that's not really, they care, a little bit about sustainability, they care about environment, but, at the end of the day, it's sort of the dollars to donuts conversation. And so, somebody might come to me right now and say, I want solar in my home. It's like, okay, cool. But, it's like, it's going to cost you $30,000 and it's going to take 20 years to pay off. And then they're like, oh. And then they're like, but we can do this, we can do this solution and that solution. And it's going to make your house more efficient. It's going to cost, a quarter of that, and you're going to get the payoff a lot faster. And then they're like, okay, let's do that. So, again, that's my approach, is to try not to, overbuild or oversell anybody something on the home. And, I think you got to, ultimately trust the professionals that they're going to put in things that, they know are going to work and they can recommend and stand behind. But yeah, I could see people jumping on the healthy home train. And, there's all sorts of certifications and things that are out there as well. You have the green home certification, stuff like that. And I'm sure maybe there is, and I don't know about it, but is there an organization that certifies healthy home instead of green home? Is that a thing?
Well, for instance, with Energy Star homes, you can get Energy Star with Indoor Air Plus. It's kind of an additional badge. So
interesting.
Yeah. And then there's the Well Institute. I think they're based out of Australia. They kind of have a healthy wellness home
Gotcha.
certification as well. So,
that might be like level 2. I could see a company kind of going in and trying to take that, market and saying, okay, we're going to create this little set of standards and this is what you got to meet. The biggest thing that I fear with that is you don't want to get it kind of the lobbyist level and all of a sudden it becomes part of building code where, again, if it's something that's good and it's not very expensive and it improves a home, I'm all for it. But what I don't want to do is start having it where everything's dictated to you, as a home builder, and all of a sudden, the average cost of a home goes up, $40,000. We're really not in an environment anymore where we can stomach a lot more of that. So, people will add things that make sense, that have good paybacks, and let's let the marketplace decide what has credence, what has value, and that's always kind of been my approach. And if things are working well and people enjoy them, they're going to naturally sell themselves.
You mentioned ERVs earlier. That's one of the more complex ventilation devices. People get a bath fan. Okay, it's going to take bad air out of my home, or a range hood. When you describe what an ERV does to folks, is that they're becoming more and more popular around the country? Is that a difficult thing to explain, or do they kind of get it?
Yeah, I think when you can start saying that you're getting air exchanges and bringing more fresh air in the home, and like a lot of those have the benefits of the controlling the humidity and things as well. I think people care about that. Or again, it's the results thing. So I've had some people where they're like, oh, I hate in the winter how I get all this frost on my windows, and it's like, okay, well, you may have too much moisture in your home, so that it could be a symptom of a couple things. So there's always solutions, and there's more expensive or inexpensive solutions, and there's more expensive solutions. So it's just kind of finding what works for people. And again, one of the challenges that we all have in new buildings is these new homes are as airtight as they've ever been. Mm-hmm. They don't breathe like they used to, and in a good way because they're more efficient, but then in a bad way in that we're trapping more of that stale, yucky air, and it gets worse as you get into different homes. Like you got a family with 4 kids and they got 2 dogs and a fish tank and all these other things going on. And yeah, there's probably, if that house doesn't have proper ventilation, it's going to have some bad and toxic air in that house. And then the other thing that you have to consider with this, which I think is really fascinating, is that I can build the same exact house, in the subdivision, for example, and I go into one house and it's a completely different environment than another one because everybody has different living habits and different, things. Like I went into one customer home and they're complaining that their woodwork's shrinking. And I went in there and it's like, yeah, it's dry as heck in here. And they got the heat cranked up and there's just 2 of them. There's no kids. There's no pets. The house is dry as heck. And I go 2 houses down to another house I built, and they've got kids and they're cooking all the time and they got the baths going and that one feels like a swamp. So it really is how you live in the home as much as the product you put in it, and then tailoring the right things to each person's lifestyle.
Yeah, good point. I know another thing, pets can play a factor. They're adding pollutants and pet dander, and it's more humidity and odors and everything else. And, if it's a family with newborns or newborns on the way, all the things you bring into a house for a nursery, like you said, every family is a little bit different in how they're going to live in a home. So
Yeah, I put a spot ventilation, I'll call it, instead of a bath fan, because it's in nursery. I put one in my nursery. I have a 15-month-old, and for that very reason, new mattress and stuffed animals, and grandma always shows up with some new toy or whatever it is that's got to go in the room, and that's emitting VOCs. And like it's got to go somewhere, and I'd rather it not go into my daughter's lungs. I'd rather it be expelled out into the air out of my house, right? Get rid of
Yeah, and being aware of that is huge. And yeah, one of the people love, oh, I love the new home smell, and like, well, the new home smell is all the glues, and the chemicals, and the resins, and the nylons, and the paint, and it's all that stuff that's coming out of it. Just like a new car smell, it's the same thing. It's all those things, and that's why it goes away after time, because that stuff oxidizes and gets expunged into the air. But yeah, some of those things aren't necessarily good for you. So yeah, I think there's just a heightened awareness, and because these homes are so tight, just allowing for additional ventilation, and especially like putting an extra exhaust fan or something in a room is not very costly. So those are really inexpensive ways to just have another level of control and improve the air quality. So I'm a big fan of that when people want those.
You brought up another interesting point that we've talked a lot about here since we brought out Overture, which we've mentioned, and I'll give it the full thing, right? Overture, automated indoor air quality system. So it automates all of your indoor air quality, connects to all your bath fans and range hoods and stuff. Anyway, for those of you that are listening and maybe not watching, you mentioned that when a new home is built, there's all these glues, and maybe a homeowner decided to put luxury vinyl in, whatever it is, right? There's stuff that's going to be emitted. They bought all new furniture. There's often been a hand raised or a flag raised to say, hey, wait, but if we're monitoring what's going on in our indoor air quality, isn't going to look like I built a really terrible home and that I'm just filling the air with all this garbage? And I think the answer to that is exactly what you said, is that stuff dissipates relatively quickly in many scenarios, and with a system like Overture, or just using your home's ventilation that you've got in there, making sure you're turning things on, it can get rid of that stuff. You're not going to continue to breathe it in. It doesn't become a problem because we're getting rid of it. So yes, it's there immediately in the first few weeks. It might even be gone by the time you move in, honestly, but if it's still there, know that like a lot of that stuff dissipates and it's going to go away. But throughout your life, you continue to live in your home and to bring new stuff in, and that can cause problems. And so you want to continue to ventilate for the life of the home. It's not a one.
Yeah, I think what to answer your question, it's like, well, you can show progress. Like, okay, hey, this is what it was day one, and then look in day 30 and in day 60 and how much it's gotten better. And so, yeah, that I could see where people might make the argument. You get the wrong customer that says, oh, you put me in a dangerous house. Right. It's like, well, no, it's a new home that's common, that's typical, unless you start investing really heavily and putting in all low VOC paints and you're putting in all natural products. But even natural products, sawdust and everything you do in that home, it's a construction site first, and then it becomes a home, and you can't take all of that out of it.
It's great to hear how you guys are talking to customers. It's great to understand how you're building homes and that you guys are thinking about the health and comfort of your homeowners, of our customers, right? I think that's awesome. We all seem to be in the same business of making lives better. Like that's our mission, is better quality of air means a better quality of life. And it feels like you guys are right in there with us on let's make people comfortable and give them a better life.
Yeah, I think staying educated. And then the other thing is, obviously as the housing market, maybe quiets down a little bit, it just gives people another reason to maybe consider buying or building a new home, because there is these new technologies and things that are out there. So it's kind of like the next level for homes and these things that come out. It's kind of like if you have a car and, it doesn't change for 2 years, you probably don't want to buy a new car, but they come out with that new model and some new features and things that people find value in, and they're all of a sudden, very interested in moving or upgrading their home.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, all right. From those of us at Broan-NuTone, from Pat and I, and on behalf of Dave as well, I'd like to say, you stay well.